What's up, book bitches? I thought of that 5 minutes ago, and I have no sense of humor, so that's my new intro now. We're just gonna shimmy the camera over so y'all don't have to look at my unmade bed. But we here. I don't understand how this mount works that I got for my ring light, so we're out of time. I know you won't see my unmade bed again. You know what? It's not that much of a disaster. I just fight invisible demons in my sleep and then all of the covers fall off, and some mornings I'm too lazy to fix them, so welcome. I show up authentic. What can we say? Jesus Christ, I am losing my mind. What is this video about? This video is about the Orillium reading challenge that is run by Book Roast. I did the novice path originally, and then we did the spring semester in April, and somehow it's already fucking August. So now we're doing the autumn equinox, which is the new semester, and to be honest, I'm here for it because I am not a summer gal. My mom is native, my dad is Scottish, and whose fucking blood did I get? All of the Scottish blood. I just go pink. I don't tan. I just turn into a lobster and burn. I am afraid of the sun, so I will be happy when fall weather comes back again. I also feel like I am always wearing my pride shirt in videos. I promise I have other clothing. I just need you all to know how gay I am. My little arrow ace heart just needs to flex on somebody. Who put me in charge of my own YouTube channel? So what I thought I would do, because it feels like forever since I've made a video, I don't know if it's actually been that long, but I have all of my books picked out for this reading challenge in August, and I need to figure out where the hell I'm getting them all from. So I thought I would do that while I talk to you about all of them. So basically the way that this challenge works is there is this fictional academy, Orillium, and you pick what you want to be, like kind of like your job. I can't remember what they're called. They're not actually called jobs. There's a better fantasy word for them. And you have certain prompts that you need to read in order to achieve courses. And so the last one was just kind of like an intro one, and the way that this one works is there are 3 levels. So there is O, Q, and D. I can't remember what they stand for, but basically, like, if it's an O level class, you only need to read the 1 prompt, but if you need to get like your Q for it, you have to read 2 books. The 2 prompts, you have to read the O level prompt and then the Q, and then if it's the D level, you have to read the O, the Q, and then the D. So my lovely little character is back with me. Kavrov and I are gonna have a stellar time going through and reading some more books. He is a necromancer, if you weren't here for my last one, and that means that I have 8 books to read, which I'm a little stressed about because since starting work, I've had a lot going on, so I haven't been reading as much. So maybe this is a good thing. I tried to pick a lot of like graphic novels because I thought that that would be a good way to like make sure that I'm getting enough reading in without also feeling like I'm a failure because I didn't finish this challenge and I'm way too hard on myself. So now that I've rambled for an almost 5-minute long intro, let's get to the point. So the first one, this is actually like the last book that I ended up picking because it was really hard to find. So it's for animal studies, and the prompt is a book with a familiar or an animal companion. And I just read a book recently that had a familiar, so I was like kind of annoyed that I didn't see this ahead of time because then I just would have saved that book. It was a webcomic series called Muted. And then I also read Sandman, which I feel like Matthew counts as an animal companion, but no, I read those all in the last couple months instead of here. But I did reach out to the people on the Discord for this fest, and I said, anybody got suggestions? I'm looking for something that is like a graphic novel or fairly short, and hit me up with it, because a lot of the ones that were coming up were like Aragorn and the Golden Compass, and they weren't really things that I like was feeling in the mood for reading. And I think that's really important when you're doing a fest, and something that I really appreciate that she talks about a lot with this fest is, you know, it's supposed to be enjoyable, it's supposed to be fun, and if you're like making yourself miserable, then that's definitely not worth it. So the book that I picked is the Tea Dragon Society, which is by Katie O'Neill. The art for this looks absolutely gorgeous. I would show you my layout in my, well, I mean, I could show you the layout at the end, but my printer was dying, so some of my titles are not as colorful as they usually are. But it is, I think it's considered middle grade, but I mean, the art and the story and everything seems so wholesome. And I think the first book is only like 90 pages or something, so I'm hoping that if I have time I might try and read. I think there's 3 in the series. So in this book we follow the story of Greta, who's a blacksmith apprentice, and the people that she meets as she becomes entwined in the enchanting world of tea dragons. After discovering a lost tea dragon in the marketplace, Greta learns about the dying art form of tea dragon caretaking from the kind tea shop owners Hezekiah and Eric. As she befriends them and their shy ward Minette, Greta sees how the craft enriches their lives and eventually her own. So I don't know if this is going to show up, but if you can see, it's like got very soft vibes. I'm just going to put it right in the center of the ring light. Very cute artwork, and I love tea. And I'm an Arrow Ace person, so of course I fucking love dragons. So this seems like a really wholesome mix. So I'm trying to remember if I put this book on hold at my library or not. Fun fact about me, while most kids were learning how to memorize their phone number, I was learning how to memorize my library card. Okay, so that one I'm gonna get from my public library. We are a big proponent of public libraries here. BookTube in general has like a bad problem with like being financial barriers to entry, which is bullshit. You shouldn't have to own books or like buy really fancy things if you don't want to, and if you do, that is also totally cool. But yeah, we want to make reading things accessible to everyone. The next book I already know where I'm getting, so I've got something sorted out in my life. Is The Summer Children, which is by Dot Hutchinson, and this is the 3rd book in the Collector series, which if you've been following me on here for a while, you know is a series that I absolutely love, by a Canadian author. And so this series starts in the 1st book with the Butterfly Garden, dealing with this man who abducts women and he calls them his butterflies. He tattoos butterflies on their back and keeps them in this garden. And the 1st book starts when they have just all escaped, and these FBI agents are interviewing kind of the girl who kind of took charge of taking care of everyone to try and piece together what happened. And so the 2nd book has like a completely different crime that's involved in it, but it still has ties to the same FBI agent, and that character from the beginning too also comes back. So this is the 3rd book in the series. I didn't tell you what the prompt was, did I? The prompt is, this is your O-level restoration, and the prompt is a single object on the cover, which all of these books have. So the 1st one has a butterfly on the cover. The 2nd one is the Roses of May, so it just has a rose on the cover, and this one just has a feather. And so this one says, when Agent Mercedes Ramirez, who's one of the characters that we already know, finds an abused young boy on her porch, covered in blood and clutching a teddy bear, she has no idea that this is just the beginning. He tells her a chilling tale. An angel killed his parents and then brought him here so Mercedes could keep him safe. His parents weren't just murdered, it was a slaughter, a rage kill like no one on the Crimes Against Children team has seen before. But they're going to get through it. An avenging angel is meting out savage justice, and she's far from through. One by one, more children arrive at Mercedes' door with the same horror story. Each one a traumatized survivor of an abusive home, each one chafing at Mercedes' own scars from the past, and each one taking its toll on her life and career. So it's dark, obviously, but one of these things that I really like about Dot Hutchinson's writing is the way that she gives voice back to the survivors in these scenarios, and that she doesn't always like kind of, some of these things I find they tend to like glorify the investigators and really give this like clean-cut idea that like our justice system magically solves everything, and she really challenges a lot of those ideals. So I'm very curious to see what happens with this one. I'm a little nervous now that I'm reading more about how violent it is against children, but if you do want to check out this series in general, any of the books, you should definitely take a look at trigger warnings before reading them. But I own the first 2 in the series, so I know that this is one that I'm going to allow myself to buy so that I can keep my little collection together on my shelf. All right, let's get this train rolling. Next we have Q in spells and incantations, and the first one that I have for that is you were supposed to spin like a color wheel or something and give you a random color. So I did that, and the cover it gave me was gold. And I don't have any, like, usually if you want like a gold book, it's like a special edition or anything, and I'm like, I'm not going out of my way to try and hunt something down, so I figured something that has like that yellow goldy color would work. And I remembered I bought this book at my local comic shop a little while ago, and I haven't got around to reading it, which is something else you'll know about me if you've been here for a while. I like to use fests as excuse to catch us up on all the books that I haven't read. So this is called Murder Me Dead, and it is by David Lapham. This is also a graphic novel. This book deals with suicide, so I'm gonna give a suicide warning here. I will like make sure to tag it in the timestamps so you can jump if you don't want to hear me read the description of this book, because the topic of the story does deal with suicide and I can't avoid talking about that and explaining what the book is to you. Hanging from the ceiling fan in their lavish Hollywood home, that's where Stephen Russell finds his estranged wife, a tear-stained note in her pocket pouring out years of pain and regret. Is it suicide? The police think so, but his wife's rich and powerful family is convinced otherwise and will do everything in their power to make him pay. As his life is systemically destroyed by a lavish private detective, a chance meeting with an old friend drives him back towards a simpler time when the world was full of hope, to a downtrodden neighborhood that he had long left behind him, and a fateful reunion with a woman who loved him. So it's like kind of a crime mystery, but also I think a little bit just about life and the ways of life. So I am very curious to read it. It's also interesting because it's just inked black and white, and I feel like I haven't really read a lot of graphic novels like that, so I'm curious to take a stab at it and see what it is like. But yes, heavy subject matter as evident from this very bold cover choice, I must say, but that is for spells and incantations. And since this is a Q level, I have to read 2 books. So this was the first prompt, and the second prompt is a book that comes from somebody else's TBR. This one also happens to have a gold cover, but it comes from Noelle Gallagher's TBR. I've decided I was in a horror mood, if you can't tell. So we have fluffy tea dragons, and then a bunch of trauma, because welcome to my life. But this book is called Hide, and it is by Kirsten White, and it is like brand new, so I have a feeling that I'm going to have to buy this one just because I don't think any of my local libraries are going to have it, or if they do, I don't think they're going to end up having it in time. So the challenge is spend a week in an abandoned amusement park and don't get caught, and the prize is enough money to change everything. Even though everyone is desperate to win, to seize their dream futures, or escape their haunting past, Mac feels she can beat her competitors. All she has to do is hide, and she's an expert at that. It's the reason she's alive and her family isn't. But as the people around her begin disappearing one by one, Mac realizes this competition is more sinister than even she imagined, and that together might be the only way to survive. 14 competitors, 7 days, everywhere to hide, but nowhere to run. Very cool. The cover is really neat. It's got this, I'm not gonna try and hold up my book again. It's got this like Ferris wheel with almost like upside down vibes underneath it, which is kind of cool. And so that is something that I'm looking forward to. I think that is the longest of all of the books that I picked because it's about 400 pages. But yeah, I'm excited to check that one out. I feel like it's been a while since I've read horror, and there was kind of a cool movie a while ago, I think it was called Hellfest, that was like, took place like a Halloween festival in an amusement park, and like people were getting killed, but everyone didn't believe them because it was like a horror themed night, which was really cool. So I feel like this one, while like different plot, is gonna have similar vibes, which seems intriguing to me. Next we have my only D level, which is in Conjuration. So we have 3 books for this one. Let's get the easiest one out of the way first. Reread a favorite. It's on my shelf somewhere, I'm not gonna go grab it. Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I love this book. It is one of my favorite books of all time. I think Two Boys Kissing has topped it, but I just reread that and spent so much time with it for my thesis. I thought it would be kind of cool to come back to this one because I read it before I started high school, like Charlie, and then I read it in my last year of high school, and now I'm a university graduate starting my career, and I think it'll be interesting to go back and revisit it and see if it means as much to me now as it did Then, if you don't know what it's about, it is about a teenager named Charlie who moves to a new town and is struggling with some mental health issues and ends up befriending these two seniors, and it just kind of goes through his life. It was made into a movie, which this is one of the few books that I actually like the movie cover better, starring Emma Watson and Logan Lerman and Ezra Miller, although we don't talk about them because they're doing not great things currently. That's a pretty short book, so I have no stress about that. The next one is a book with a bone on the cover, which my pick for that is If We Were Villains, which I've been seeing everywhere, but I think the plot was a little bit different than I thought, which I think kind of led me to choosing it. It depends on what title you're looking at, whether there's bones in the cover, but the one that I picked has a massive skull on the cover. And the plot is, on the day Oliver Marks is released from jail, the man who put him there is waiting at his door. Detective Colburn wants to know the truth, and after 10 years, Oliver is finally ready to tell it. A decade ago, he was one of 7 young Shakespearean actors at this classical conservatory, a place of ambition and fierce competition. But in their 4th and final year, good-natured rivalries turn ugly, and an opening night, real violence invades the students' world of make-believe. In the morning, the 4th years find themselves facing their own tragedy and the greatest acting challenge yet, convincing the police, each other, and themselves that they are innocent. So I think the theater aspect was not something that I was expecting at all, but as a former theater kid, I think that this will be a really interesting and unique read. And it seems to be fairly well reviewed because it's been quite popular and over the internet lately. And then the very last one that I have for Conjuration is a book with necromancy themes. So I heard about this book because I saw it on TikTok, because there was an artist who had been doing the cover art for the individual issues, and then when you put them together it made like a really big picture, which I thought was super cool. But when I looked into it, I think the run of the comic is done now, so I don't even know if I could get those. But it features vampires. So it's a modern Wild West road trip about a witch named Yana cruising the Southwest as a band of bloodthirsty biker vampires, the Hounds of Love, hunt her scattered coven for the source of all magic, witch blood. Now, I don't consider a vampire a necromancer because they don't, but see, are they a necromancer? Because they do raise people from the dead. Like if somebody's recently deceased or dying, you know, then they bite you and then you like come back. I think they can bite you if you're dead and then you come back alive, right? It probably depends on the variation of vampire. So it's like they do raise the dead in a way, which is necromancy, but also maybe it's like all vampires are necromancers, but not all necromancers are vampires type vibe, you know, the whole square rectangle situation. And I was having a hard time finding books that I wanted for this because I have way too many YA romance, and I think I'm getting to the point where I'm like, why am I reading these when these are not going to be what my life is, or it doesn't really fit where I am right now. Not that I won't read them at some point in time, but yeah, I'm actually whittling down my TBR to not having a lot of diversity when it comes to genre choices, and I really wanted to read this book, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna throw that out there. Might be a controversial theme, but I've decided that vampires count as a book with necromancy themes. Who knows, maybe these witches raise the dead too. I will find out when I read it. But yeah, the cover and everything looks really punk rock, and the art seems pretty great. And from the looks of it, there's a library near me, not my library, but near me, that has a copy of it where I will be able to get it. And then the very last one is an O level in demonology, which is to read a fantasy. I guess I said I wasn't getting out to get Perks of Being a Wallflower, but I am getting out to get this one. So this is a magic steeped in poison, which I just talked about in my mid-year freakout tag because I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. But I think it follows the main character after her mother dies, and it's supposedly her fault because she unwillingly brewed this poison tea that killed her. Then she hears about like a competition to find the greatest masters of the ancient magical art of tea making, and she goes to the city to compete, kind of trying to like find her way out of her life and everything that's happened and kind of start fresh in a new future. But it is a magic system that is entirely based off of tea, and it is very beautiful cover. I just love the colors and everything. And it's magic. Magic is fantasy, so there we go. Fantasy is my top genre, which is a little surprising to me because I think when I think of fantasy, I tend to think of high fantasy, and that's not usually what I read. I read low fantasy. Is there a word for that? So, okay, let's just sum up. So out of these books, I am reading 3 that I already have: Murder Me Dead, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and A Magic Steeped in Poison. There is 3 that I'm going to be able to get from the library, which is Witchblood, If We Were Villains, and The Tea Dragon Society, and then there are 2 that I have to purchase, which is The Summer Children and Hyde, and I actually don't think that's a bad ratio, especially minus my like monthly comments. I haven't bought a lot of books recently. Anyways, this video was longer and more chaotic than it needed to be, but what else is new? Thank you to everyone for being so patient for me as I navigate the world of being an adult with a full-time job. I definitely think that the videos might be a little bit slower going forward, but I do have some hope. Just setting this up as a goal for myself, and I think it'll also be good for me, like mental health wise, to kind of keep track of what's going on. I'm thinking that as I work through this fest, I might do like a reading vlog for every weekend in August and then share that with y'all. But yeah, that's it for now. I'm gonna shut up before this video gets to be half an hour long. Yeah, I appreciate you all. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, stick around, be my friend. I love making new friends. And until the very next video, stay kind.